So, kia ora koutou, everybody. Welcome to the second in our Real Estate Insider series. We're super privileged to have, looks like he's just got a few technical issues, but we're super privileged to have Anton Fatkin, branch manager from Barfoot and Thompson in Meadowbank with us today, talking about sports psychology and how we can use sports psychology and some of the things he's learned to get better real estate success. Joined also by my co-host, Francis Kane, who's a sales executive here at Relab. Looks like Anton's just had a little bit of a technical glitch. Let me just try and drag him back on in the nicest possible way. Right, and then we'll cruise on. Frankie, how about you introduce yourself while we're just waiting for Anton to...
Sorry, just 1 second, having some error. I can't hear you for some reason. Might be because I put my headphones in, so we'll see how that goes. Just be with me,
No problem at all.
Sorting out technical issues.
Always the
Even though we tested this yesterday.
Always the way. Perfectly fine. We'll get there. Good morning, Edmund, and good morning,
Still can't seem to hear you, unfortunately.
Tie looks good on you, Francis. Yes, the tie does look good on Francis. You clean up quite well,
thank you, Lou.
Francis, don't you?
Yeah. Tried my best this morning. Actually, grabbed it just on the way out the house. So, thank you for the reminder, night.
Brilliant, love it.
How's the weather down south this morning, Lou?
Look, it's actually incredibly beautiful today. You can see some beautiful light coming in from my bay windows, which is pretty cool. Hey, Anton, you're back. Can you hear us now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Sorry, not sure what happened. I mean, kind of expected that might be the case. You know, you test everything out and everything is sorted the day before, and then just as you decide to join, that's when the issues tend to come up. But
it's all good. It's all good. Let's jump in. So I've just introduced you, Anton. And as branch manager of Barfoot and Thompson in Meadowbank. I'm just going to jump straight to Frankie, and Frankie's going to open just with a little bit of a sort of a warm-up question, and then we'll get started.
All sounds good.
Sure thing. Cheers. Thank you, Lou, and thank you for coming on today, Anton. One of the first things which I found quite funny, when we first met, I had absolutely no idea you were a top-level sportsman. I thought you just lived and breathed real estate, mate. So could you give us a bit of a background on your sporting career?
Yeah, look, I mean, that's a huge compliment. From my end, look, I ended up, I used to do a bit of boxing, and I've always been into combat sports in my younger days. Done a few years boxing, had a few competitive fights there. From there, I went to boarding school, and basically there was a bit challenging to do anything there. There was no gyms around where I was based. And as soon as finished school, first year of uni, I thought, okay, cool, it's a fun activity. I've always enjoyed it. I'll go back in there. Went to a local NZ boxer shop to buy some new gloves, and out the back they were doing a Muay Thai class there. So I thought, cool, I'll test out the gloves, jump in there, and basically hung around there for the next 9 years. Had a number of competitions and was lucky enough to get some international competitions in there as well. But yeah, look, it was something I absolutely enjoyed, and to this day, I think it's, combat sports, best type of exercise, as well as, keeps you grounded mentally. So absolutely love that part of it.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, and pretty interesting story to how you came into it. Do you do much these days, or?
Look, no, not really. I'm just living the glory days, looking at a couple of fights. I get on my Facebook, you always get those reminders 7 years ago, and it's me and my outfit about to walk into a ring or mid-competition, or, having my hand raised. So it's a pretty cool thing to look back on. But no, I don't do that much of it now. I think part of it is, as you get older, you tend to get a bit more injuries. And it's pretty tough because I still got friends who are competing. And what happens is you go in there, start helping them to train for a competition. You start training, you start getting a bit more fit. You thought, okay, well, actually, I reckon I could still take you on. Start doing it more and more. And then you're almost back into it. And before you know it, you've got a swollen ankle and you're limping around the office. You're going, yeah, I probably shouldn't have really got back into that.
It's called getting older, Anton, and it's something that we all have to do. That's super funny. My husband actually used to play soccer, and when we first met, and every Sunday would roll around and he'd be fine, and off he'd go and he'd play, and then he'd pull his hammy, and it would take the whole week and complaining, and then by Saturday he'd miraculously be okay again to try again. And there was one point there where he sort of said, "Have to sort of maybe give this up." Hey, I've got a question for you. We talk a lot. We talk to a lot of real estate coaches, Tom Panos and Darren Prattley, and they've got some pretty incredibly inspiring mindset tips. Now, what do you think? What role does mindset play in achieving success in real estate, and how can agents develop a winning mindset, do you think?
Yeah. Look, as far as it goes, I think real estate, look, it's competitive, it's challenging industry. So having a winning mindset does make all the difference. I think you've got to create a positive and a resilient mindset, and that really helps you to overcome obstacles and stay focused. To me, look, goal setting is crucial. Once you've set your goals, you tend to work backwards to figure out how you're going to get there. Knowing what you're doing and sticking to it can help you be resilient through the difficult times. The other thing as well is having the right people around you. Real estate can be pretty lonely, but it doesn't have to be. Surround yourself with positive people and a positive leader. They're the ones that are on the winning journey with you. So, in my team, I always encourage sharing, whether it's positive or negative things. Sometimes if something's working, great, share it with other people, so they can implement it on their business. Or sometimes you end up having a discussion where you find ways to refine it and make it more effective and efficient. If something doesn't work out, then talk about it too. I think you don't need to fall down to learn. I've got an open door policy with all my staff, probably not for the next 30 minutes, but other than that, they come and chat with me all the time. So I think it's important to continue refining your plan, your process, and your mindset, because, developing that winning mindset is definitely worth it. It's a lot of effort, but it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, look, I think that's a really important point, is that it's super important to talk about the failures and the things that are not going so well as well. It's so easy, and it's human nature for us to not want to talk about those things, and it's hard, and it's uncomfortable, and it doesn't feel good, and it doesn't feel good to talk about what's not going right. But sometimes it's in those conversations around the things that are not going right, and it's around the conversations around things that are those constant blockers, that you do get those breakthroughs, and you do get those moments of clarity where you go, oh, I hadn't thought of it like that. So I love that.
It's one of those things, people tend to, and I mean, it's all over social media, people tend to just post the positive side of things. That's just the way it is at the moment, but there's a lot of negatives, and that's the stuff you don't see. On social media, you see all the sales signs, and that person's, and sometimes it almost looks easy in a way. You're like, oh, this person's just absolutely crushing it. You don't actually hear about all the difficult things that they're going through, or the challenges that they've gone through to get that deal across the line. So, look, I think, I completely agree with you on that. Yeah,
absolutely. And you do say it's always the sold sign, and it's always, so happy for my clients, and I look what my vendors got, and I think, perhaps there's a little niche there that, we could explore, social media, a little bit more reality, and, maybe.
I think people are also understanding that more, and, it's life isn't just always positive. I mean, great, there is positive things, but in terms of those negative things, it's important to learn off others as well, because you are in this together. Sometimes real estate can feel a bit like a battlefield, because look, it is an individual game. At the end of the day, you are there, unless you're in a partnership or you're in a team. But a lot of the time, even then, you have those people that you can bounce things off. It's always easier, just in all aspects of life, to be able to talk to people. Helps you bounce back a lot quicker.
Absolutely, yeah. And I know we've slightly covered it a little bit with the answer to that last question, Anton. We know it's quite tricky at the moment for agents. What do you think are some common barriers which agents are facing?
Look, to me, I'd say the biggest ones that I tend to see, the mental barriers, is sort of lack of focus and lack of motivation. There's lots of tasks, and it can be challenging to stay focused. Sometimes you see people start a task, and all of a sudden they come up with all these other tasks, and at the end of the day, they're sitting there with a whole bunch of tasks that they started but haven't actually completed. It's also quite difficult to find motivation to go out there and prospect, like especially on days like this. Like I'm looking outside right now, raining. A lot of people can tend to give themselves an excuse. So that's where motivation goes out the window. But that's where a business plan comes in handy. Set your goals, work backwards, and how you're going to achieve them. Every person in my office has got a business plan. I regularly bring this out with them to check in what they're doing. Are they doing the right tasks that we both set out for them? And set actionable steps and do daily schedules with yourself. Like find a manager or a mentor who cares and holds you accountable. I've been very lucky throughout my career. I've quite early on had a mentor who's always been on my side. And, we've always had this plan. I mean, I've wanted to become a manager and I've been in real estate for 13 years now. I think it's been my goal to become a manager for the last 9. And he was aware of this and he's been by my side the entire way through. And as a matter of fact, I actually ended up taking over from him in this role, which makes it that much more special. But look, having a plan, I think, is the key. At the end of the day, the agents are independent contractors. So they are their own bosses. Yep. If you don't do the work, you aren't going to get paid. It's pretty brutal, but that's how it is. But on the flip side, if you're prepared to do the work, you'll get the rewards.
Yeah, I love that. And, it's super important. The whole business plan thing is super important. I know a lot of branch managers don't do that with their teams. And I think, I love that. Darren Prattley, so one of the real estate coaches that we talked to, he said if it's not planned, it's not prioritized. So he's really big on making sure that you have those things in your calendar, you have those things in your diary, and you know what's happening today. You know when you're going to do your prospecting, you know when you're going to do certain things. Otherwise, it's just, another week's gone past and I haven't done my prospecting, or, so love that. Hey, we're going to just switch topics a little bit here. So we're going to talk about rituals. So I know that a lot of professional athletes have some pre-game rituals or routines, or so have you seen, or do you think that there's certain things that real estate agents can do, or what are some of those rituals or routines that they can do before they go into, say, prospecting or negotiations, or the different things that they do in their day?
Yeah, it's look, when I say to me, like sort of those pre-game rituals or routines, kind of keep repeating myself on this, but I think preparation is the key. And again, having that plan, it's in terms of prospecting and stuff like that. I think it's very important to even, again, have that plan, know what you're going to be talking about, know what's happening in the real estate industry. I say to my team, know what's happening on the macro and the micro side. Like macro, when I talk about this, it's like the entire market, what's happening in New Zealand as a whole, Auckland market as a whole, what's happening in interest rates, what's happening in the construction centre, what are some incoming changes that are going to be affecting the vendors and the purchasers. On the micro side of things, it's like that's your core area. What are the recent sales? How many 2 and 3 bedrooms homes sold in the last 12 months? What's the median prices? How long did that take? What's that? How does that differ to the macro data? What's the age demographic of the people living there? If you do those things, I mean, that's kind of part of the pre-game ritual. If you're going out prospecting and you always make sure you have those things covered, it makes it a lot easier to actually go out there and execute. Like if I look back on my Muay Thai days, it was really in preparation. If I was really fit, if I had the right people in my corner and we had a game plan, all that left to do was to go out there and execute. So I think real estate could be very much the same that way. So for my team, I always suggest in the mornings, like even today, you read Herald, what's out there, because if you're reading it, I guarantee you probably your vendors are also going to be reading it. There was an interesting article there this morning about the construction and the amount of consents that's gone down. I believe it was 21%. So it's about having discussions around those things. So always being prepared, because once you're prepared, it makes everything that much easier.
Yeah, and look, that's a really important one. I had a conversation with the CEO of a really cool company. I won't mention the name here because we're actually going to have him on and do a webinar with them. So it's sort of an online mortgage advisory, sort of matches your first home buyers and home buyers with mortgages and products and stuff. And it looks a super, super, super cool product. We're going to talk to that guy a little bit later on in the month. But he was saying that it's super important when real estate agents are having conversations with vendors. And like you say, you've got to understand what the Reserve Bank's doing. You've got to understand what's happening in the economy. You've got to understand interest rates, but you've also got to understand what's happening in the mortgage sector. And you've got to understand, on a macroeconomic scale, as well as those sort of micro details about what's happening in your particular suburb. I know Relab, we do suburb insights, which is a new tool that we've got, which is super popular because people can go and they can just snapshot, see what's happening in Mount Eden over the last 90 days or whenever. So yeah, no, I love that. And you do have to be prepared. And I think now too, when business isn't as easy to come to you, you really need to go that extra mile. And it's not just a matter of, if I just wait around long enough, the business will come to me, because there's a plethora of business out there. There's not right now. So you just do have to be that over and above, and adding that extra level of value to your to your prospects, and also to your vendors, so that they know that you're there, you're top of mind for them when they decide to go to market, and they know that, hey, Anton knows his shit. He knows what's happening. He knows what's happening in the economy. He understands the market, and he understands this particular area. So super, love that. Frankie, I think you've got a question about metrics.
Yeah, absolutely. I really like what you said about just having a game plan for your agents. I'm very similar. I like to think, 3 months, 6 months, maybe even a year ahead in what I'd like to achieve, personal and also business as well, my working career. With your agents, what sort of metrics do you use to track their progress? Is it how many CMAs they've produced, how many listings?
Yeah. So that's a very interesting question. But look, any company, at the end of the day, you measure agent success by gross commission. But in saying that, I say to my team, the real estate's like running a marathon and you hit a wall. I don't know if any of you have run a marathon before. I thought I could do one some years back. Decided to do it with sort of little training, and all of a sudden I hit a wall. Legs went stiff. The mind starts telling you maybe it's time to stop. Have a little lay down on the side there. You'll be all right. But at that point, the only thing you really start concentrating on taking the step after step. So I feel like it's like that in real estate. You concentrate on the step, and that step is really having a good conversation with someone in the market. People have been doing real estate, been in the industry for a long time. They tend to get away from this. They concentrate on sales or how many listings they get. But at the end of the day, it all starts from that step, and it's having that good conversation with someone. I feel that without a doubt, prospecting is the key to being successful in this business. If you're prospecting, you're concentrating on having those good conversations with potential clients, you will be successful. A good conversation, a good convo leads to more good combos, which leads to them inviting you into their property. That will probably lead to you giving them an appraisal, and at some stage, you listing, securing that business and selling it. So I guess to answer your question, we're always going to look at GCI, but at the same time, we concentrate on that good conversations. How many people are you talking to, and adding value to them? If someone's out there prospecting and they're having plenty of good conversations, for a fact, it's not a matter of if they will be successful, it's a matter of when they will be successful.
I'd totally agree with that as well. It's even the same for myself, and some of our team is even just having, short 5-10 minute conversations with someone, flicking out a few good emails. There's always going to be some good come from it as well. So I think if you just keep on top of it, it's super important, and you will get something good from it.
Well, you're building, real estate is so much about relationships, and you're continuously building on those relationships by having those good conversations. And a lot of the time, look, I'd love to say there's plenty of people out there prospecting, and, I tend to check in with my team. Someone out and prospected this week. They went out there for a couple of hours. They ended up getting 9 numbers, right? Now that's another 9 people that were able to share their details. So they're happy to keep in touch. And 2 of those ended up also looking in the market for something else. So that person will be able to assist them further. Now it's early days, right? But if you put that in the plan and you're going to talk to these people on a monthly basis, at first it starts off, it's that real estate agent. I mean, I've had this throughout my career. It started off as, there's that real estate agent calling. By the end of it, it ends up being, Anton's on the phone, blah, blah, blah. I'll go and grab them. And that's how okay, I've put myself in a position where I'm going to be at the top of their mind.
Yeah, I love that. And I know we bought an investment property off a local agent and a couple of years ago now. And he was actually a guy that I went to school with and, remember fondly. And I know that if I ever saw his number come up on my phone, I would be picking that call up just because of the way he handled us. And, there'd be certain agents that I'd probably see on my phone, maybe not, but most of them that I've dealt with over the years, and we've got sort of 3 teenage kids and whatever, we've moved a few different times. Most of the agents I've dealt with, I would certainly have a lot of time for. In fact, one that sold my house in Queenstown, we had him on the webinar because he's just so amazing, and he does social media super well. So we brought him on. So I love that. Hey, we've been talking about mindset quite a bit. So my next question is, how do you balance that high performance mentality with avoiding burnout and taking care of your mental health and taking care of your team's mental health?
Look, I want to sound like a broken record here, but have a plan in place and reflect as well. If you look at professional athletes, and like the athletes themselves and the organization tends to plan the players' breaks ahead of time. Like All Blacks are made to set out a certain amount of games throughout their regular season to ensure players stay healthy. You don't see LeBron James playing every minute of a basketball game. Plan some holidays and take time to yourself to avoid that burnout. Reflect on what work you've done as well. And that way ensure there is a balance in that. With my team, we've just done a training session, and it was around that as well, making sure you don't burn out. Over my 13 years in real estate, I've seen a number of people burn out because they just haven't reflected on what they've done and what they're doing. The sad thing is, sometimes burnouts just isn't just about person's mental well-being and their health. It can also affect their relationships and family. For myself, I've been very lucky. I've got a mentor and had a mentor for many years. I've got a business coach. Both of them have been extremely successful in their fields, and they keep me on a good path. I know that sometimes I can be my own worst enemy, going 110% for extended periods of time. But look, there's a lot of people that can attest to that. They have worked alongside me. But again, same thing. I've identified that as a problem. It's a problem when other hardworking people are concerned for you. So that's why you make sure you have a plan in place and the right people around you that can help you to avoid that.
Yeah, and I understand you've also got a new addition in the family. So that adds a whole nother level of complexity when it comes to taking care of your own health and the health of your partner and your new baby and your team. So it does add more and more dimensions, doesn't it? In terms of, now you've got a little bit more stress, a little bit less sleep.
The sleep part is definitely a factor. Last night I was up, and to be fair, I'm not complaining in any way. Our daughter's amazing, and I absolutely love being a dad. My wife's amazing on handling that side as well. But in certain times, she says, "Hey, look, why don't you go and sleep in the other room tonight?" Because in this job, we have to give a lot of energy. I want to give a lot of energy to my team. So you got to know yourself. If you feel like you're burning out, there's no point getting sick and then me taking an entire week off. I now got a cold and I'm so run down. Understand where you are, reflect, and set a plan in place.
Yeah, and believe me, the sleep does get better, and then you're dealing with not being able to get them out of bed as they grow older. And having gone back and done it 3 times myself, there's either insanity or there's something good in amongst all of that, which there certainly is. Treasure those times in the middle of 3 a.m. times, because you don't get them back. And in hindsight, we did treasure them. Obviously, we had great babies, but those 3 a.m. feeds, they're actually pretty special. Frankie, I think you've got sort of one more question, one more big question, and then we're going to go into a fast 5, which is super interesting to learn a little bit more about you. But before we do that, I just would like, if anyone's got any questions for Anton, pop them in the chat on the right-hand side there, and Frankie will get to those at the end. I'm sure plenty of you have got questions. And before we go to Frankie for this last question, just going to give you a curveball. How do you feel confident and optimistic about the market over the next 6, 12, 18 months? I personally do. I personally sort of feel like we're all probably, touch wood, near the sort of end of the really bad stuff. How do you feel?
Well, in terms of that, look, the market's the market. We can't really control that. Sure, the media has some sort of sway in that as well in terms of what they're putting out there, because at the end of the day, the customers and the vendors, they're the ones that read these things, and it also sways them. Sometimes the market is, it's sure there's government side to it, but the opinion also sways what's happening. Look, there's going to be an election this year, so there's still going to be some challenges ahead. But at the end of the day, the market's the market. You can't control that. It's about doing the task that you're supposed to. If you look back a few years ago, it was a pretty easy market, right? From the agent side of things, there was plenty of buyers out there. The vendors were also pretty happy to list, and a lot of the time you're achieving the prices above what they were wanting. So right now, look, sure, you have to work harder. It's about ticking those boxes. You're not skipping any steps of the process. You're ensuring you're doing everything possible. But the positive is, in the market like this, if you're doing all the right steps, what's going to happen is, I've been in the industry 13 years, and you've seen things go up, things come down, things go up again, and it's going to keep happening. I mean, we've got people in here who've done this for 25 years, and they're like, oh, I've seen this 3 or 4 times now. And it's true. So you're always going to have the ups, you're always going to have the downs as we're going through this period. Keep doing, keep prospecting, stick to your plan, because when the market starts shifting, you're going to be in the best possible position to capture it. Right?
And that's the key, isn't it? And that's what Tom Panos talks about quite a bit, is that you do the work, you keep doing the work, and then when the tide turns, I think he says something about when the tide goes out, you'll see who's not wearing togs or something. I can't remember exactly what the analogy is, but it is quite funny. But also Ashley Church, who is a commentator, and obviously we had him on a few weeks back, and he was saying that, he's looked at the data, like he's really looked at the in-depth data, and, there's always a cycle. It used to be 10 years. He's thinking it's probably more like 12 years, 12-year cycle sort of moving forward, potentially, where prices will double. He said it may even move out to 15 years, just with the different forces at play. But he said it's always a cycle. No matter what, there's always a cycle. And he also said that it's not so much about the Reserve Bank stopping these increases, nor the interest rates coming down. It's about certainty, and it's about people, the buyers and the sellers, feeling certain that this is sort of where we are. I feel like we've reached peak, or having a little bit of certainty around what's happening. So, I agree with you. Hey, Frankie, we'll go to you for your last big question. And then we've got a question in chat, and then we've got some fast fives as well.
Cheers. Thank you, Lou. I've played a decent level of football for the past 10 or 12 years, I'd say. Always in team environments, and for myself as well. For sportsmen, it's always very important to receive feedback, right? Whether it's, positive feedback, you played well, or maybe a few work-ons at training. How can agents take that feedback from clients, or maybe from peers or branch managers, and use that in a positive way to better themselves?
Yeah, I love this question. Look, we do plenty of reflecting. I think it's extremely important to reflect both on the negatives and positive. Like, let's say proposals, for example. My team know that it's beneficial for them to find out why they've missed out on the listing. If they did miss out, they tend to provide me with a phone number for clients. I'll reach out to them. Similarly, when they secure a business as a branch manager, you tend to meet those vendors down the track. So you end up having a discussion to find out what factors led them to go with that agent. To be honest, people are very happy to provide feedback when they know someone is eager to improve themselves. I'm here to give someone a call and ask them for some feedback, and they go, no, I don't really want to provide you anything. As long as you take the right approach, I guess for me as a manager, I always explain, hey, look, I'm just trying to help this person to become better. And at that point in time, people are happy to provide that feedback. Just like professional athletes as well, have a coach. I think it's important for me to give agents the feedback. We regularly, as I said, we've got open door policy, regularly bounce ideas and discuss strategies. It's like for me, I used to do sparring with my coach. He used to go pretty hard on me, but that led to me getting better and better. So the same goes in here. If people come in, I'll make sure I ask them all the hard questions beforehand. So then that way they go in there, and sure, they might be nervous. That's a common thing. But if you've got a plan in place, you've practiced and you've prepared for the worst possible and hardest possible questions, if you go out there and all of a sudden you realize, well, I was nervous when I came in here, but all of a sudden nothing's coming out of the blue that I didn't prepare for. And all of a sudden you start feeling more and more comfortable. So yeah, I think it's that to me is very important.
Absolutely. Yeah, totally agree with that. Feedback is, it's the best way to get better. So you have to take advantage of that, I guess. Hey, just before we jump into the questions from the chat over there, we'll just jump into the quick fire, fast 5 questions, hey?
Go.
all ready to go?
I hope
cool.
so.
Cool. So first question is, what is your favorite local restaurant?
It would be Chibo. Look, I absolutely love that place. I took my wife there on our first date, so pretty special place for me.
Do you guys go back there often together?
Look, it's a pretty flash place. I'd love to say we go there often, but not as often as I'd like to. But to me, it's an amazing local. A bit harder to do things like that as well now with having a 3-month-old.
Yeah, for sure. Question number 2, proudest childhood achievement?
So I guess childhood achievement for me, I came to New Zealand when I was 11, and it's one of those things I just recently reflected on it, was actually becoming fluent in English without any real help. I came here in, I think it was year 7, and went into school and I didn't speak a word of English. And by the end of the year, I was just was talking, and by the time I was in high school, I was fluent. So I think that was, reflecting back now, that was quite impressive.
Where did you come from, and what's your native language?
So I'm Russian, probably not the most popular country at the moment, but I claim myself as a Kiwi, been a Kiwi for many years now. My first language is Russian. So I remember came in here, little Russian boy. Thank God for being fast, and thank God for rugby. I came in, no word of English, couldn't. I think they asked me to do. I see, like looking back, I'm like, how did I even survive? But I survived by them putting me on the wing and just saying, as soon as you get the ball, you just run really quickly. Put it down past that line. So I mean, that made sense. So.
Oh, that's very impressive that you managed to pick it up quickly as well.
I think as a kid you can. I mean, it's almost like a superpower, right? Your brain's like a sponge. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Third one, I know you've got a stack of books behind you. What was the last book you read?
Makes it look like I did it on purpose, right? I tend to hand those out to some of the people that come in here as well. I think that's a great way to learn. Plenty of great books, but the last one I read was Great by Choice by Jim Collins. Definitely recommend doing that. Again, so much to do with the mindset. If you haven't read it, it's great. If you can't be bothered reading it, listen to the audiobook or send me an email. I'll send you a summary. I actually, after reading a book, I tend to make notes for myself, so then I can often, things like that, I mean, that's just absolute gold. So you go back and you can just refresh on the main points because you've read the whole thing.
Awesome. Fourth question, favorite way to relax?
It'd definitely be spending time with my wife and my daughter and my Frenchie. Love all 3 of them. So it's amazing.
What's your Frenchie's name?
Awesome.
Albie. I actually, it looks bad because I haven't even got a photo of my daughter behind me. But the one in the middle is my Frenchie, Albie. He's just so cute. Frenchies have so much personality.
They do.
And whenever I end up sleeping in the other room just because I need that time, he actually always comes in and cuddles in with me. I want to say it makes it better, but I mean, he takes up the whole bed and all of a sudden I end up sleeping, wake up with a sore neck. But hey, so worth it.
Cool. And the last question, some advice you'd give to your 20-year-old self?
You're on the right track. Stick with it. We've had this goal. I'm 31 now, about to be 32. If I reflect back, I've been in real estate at 20. So with something like that, I do think, just stick with it because, I mean, I am where I want it to be. So, yeah.
Fantastic. No, I think that 10-year plan, 12-year plan you had was super impressive as well. It just shows how driven and focused you were as well. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll just hand over. We'll have a quick look at some of those questions. Hey, Lou.
Yeah, cool. Hey, so Kim's asking if you have any tips for someone that's just starting in their real estate career, especially in this current market, and especially about sticking to it and having that mindset. I guess she's asking, like, things are kind of hard and I'm new. What do I do? How do I get through?
Yeah, no, look, the biggest part is you got to understand in real estate, it's always hard. For me, I actually started in the commercial field. And so although it was actually very hard changing from commercial over to residential because I basically had to restart my business again. And at that point in time, it just reminds you just how hard it is during those starting points. But just remember, stick to the process. If you do the right activity, as I said before, it's not a matter of if you succeed, it's a matter of when you succeed. I think it's very important to do journaling as well, because that makes you realize if you are putting in the work, you will be successful. And yes, it's going to be hard. We did a team training recently, and I used the analogy that real estate, especially when you're starting out, or even if you've done this for a while, real estate and your business, it's like a steam train, right? You're putting in the coal, and to get that thing moving at the very start, you have to put in a lot of effort, right? It takes a lot of coal to get that thing moving. And once it's moving, it gets easier. But then at the same time, if you've been doing real estate for a long period of time, once that train stops, you're going to have to do a lot of that work again. So just know, if you're putting in the work, you're journaling the activities you're doing, and keep concentrating, as I said before, on that step. If you're having good discussions, those good discussions will lead to things. Keep prospecting. I think that's the key. If you talk to any of the top people in the industry, all of them started out, and all of them did plenty of prospecting, had a very strong database that they stuck to.
Tony's just said here, real estate's a long game. Yeah, absolutely agree with that. And Jake's asked, before starting a career in real estate, what's the one big thing that people need to be aware of? I think I know what your answer is going to be.
Yeah, look, it's quite tough. You are going to be self-employed, so it's one of those things. I remember when we first started, and I was in an amazing company called James Group in commercial real estate. Shout out to all those guys there. But I remember we're sitting in the room. We used to call it the boiler room. It basically was the same size as my entire office now, but there was about 4 of us. And it was a matter of whether you laugh or cry, right? We used to write down basically what our earnings were per day. And obviously starts off quite negative, and then you do a couple of deals, and within the first 6 months, you're like, yeah, basically making $6 a day. Isn't looking too flash, but it's one of those things you stick to it. All of us did stick to it. All the guys are still in the industry, all extremely successful. And by the end of the year, all of us achieved the goals that we wanted to achieve. So, it's just keep that in mind. Like, you will need to have a buffer when you get into real estate, especially in a time like this. It is more challenging. I've got a couple of newer people who are working with me, and they understand those challenges. You just got to stick with it. That's the important part.
Yeah, great. And I think we'll go for Danielle's question. Definitely starting out, how do you build a good personal brand as an agent?
That's an interesting question, because in real estate, people, I want to say that they list with brands. Sure, absolutely, that is a big factor, but people list with you. So don't be afraid to be your own brand. For me, I've always been myself. If you see me down the street, I'm going to be exactly the same as I am right now. I was exactly the same in my interview with the directors, because it's a bit too hard to try to fake something that you're not. It's going to end up being tiring, and sooner or later someone's going to find out that that's actually not how you are. So I think be your own brand. And people will list with you. You see some agents out there, and look, in my mind, it's a little bit quirky. They're doing singing, dancing with guitars on videos and things like that, but they're getting business, right? And so sometimes you're not going to fit everyone, and that's the thing. You might be working in some sort of a bit of a niche market, but it is going to be a niche market, and you still will be successful in that market, because some people aren't going to get that business. So it's really have a look at yourself and who you are, and then you can build your brand around that. But the main thing is be yourself. And as I said, if you come in, whether you're a brand new agent or you've been around for a while, if you come in as yourself and you've got the macro knowledge and the micro knowledge, people will go, yep, this person is an expert in their field, and this is their personality. And, a lot of the time, if they feel like you're an expert, you're probably going to get the business over someone that they feel is not. But if you've got the personality that matches them, it's going to be an additional benefit.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I know when we had Denny Bevan from Queenstown, an agent, on talking about personal brand, he was saying that you find your niche. So you find the Facebook groups that are your thing. Like he was a professional snowboarder, so very similar to you. And he used to get sponsored and whatnot. So he's very good with the GoPro, and he's very good at all these sorts of things. And he uses his talents. He's got a Hilux, and he helps get people out of ditches in winter. And, so he plays to his strengths. So I think that's pretty incredible. Hey, one more question. How many salespeople are in your office, and what system do you use to keep track of them all? That's a good question.
Actually at Barfoot Thompson, we're in the process of changing over our existing system. Right now we're on, we've if I'm answering the question correctly, agents use my desktop, but that's in process. We're moving over to another system. Don't know if I'm allowed to say, so I'll probably just won't say it, but it is a system that I've had access to, and it's super beneficial. Within our team, we've got about 19 salespeople right now. And, as I came in, my goal wasn't just to go out there and try to hire a whole bunch of people. I've been in this particular role for 8 months. I feel I've got some advice from my previous mentor as well. She mentioned to me, one of the mistakes that she's done when she took over the business, she basically got rid of a large number of people and sort of did a big rebuild. She felt that she actually made a bit of a mistake there, and perhaps what she could have done was to give those people a little bit more, because some people have been here for 20 years, and it's makes my job so rewarding when they come in and go, oh my God, this is so great. We've never really had this kind of support. And you see that as well. I've got someone in here who's done, as I said, real estate for 20 years now, and they were extremely successful. Things have kind of slightly changed, but I got them out there now. They're doing the prospecting. So I think everyone deserves a go there. And sooner or later, it's a long term for me. I'm going to be here for a while. So, perhaps if someone doesn't really align with what I'm doing or how I'm doing it, they're going to move on, and that's just how it's going to be.
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on today, Anton. I think everyone who was a part of it would have found it super insightful and also motivating as well. You've got quite an interesting story.
Oh, thank you. No, and thank you for inviting. I think you guys are doing a great job. You're providing a great service and making things a lot easier for people. Got plenty of time for you, so I'm more than happy to jump on anytime.
Yay, pleased to hear that. Thanks for your time. Loved talking to you. Yes. Got a few little nuggets in there, which was super interesting. A few wee pearlers there. I loved your advice. Around, specifically, planning, but also around, that whole mindset and creating.
If you don't get anything from today, the main thing is just go out there and prospect, and just keep on prospecting and have a plan in place to do the prospecting. You will become successful.
Playing the long game. Awesome. Well, you go and you have a fantastic weekend. Thanks for joining us. And for everybody else, this will be recorded and will be sent to you as a replay if you want to share it with your teams. You'll go and have a good weekend. Thank you.
All right.
See ya. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Thank you, team.